Welcome everyone. Topic for today: reducing the waste of defects. Defects cause rework, and basically you have to put in extra time to repair the defects or improve the service that was incomplete. That extra time, would the client be able to pay you extra for the fact that you created a defective product and now need to actually invest extra time in it to repair it? No, the client doesn't care that your process has flaws in it, so it is actually a form of waste every time you create a defect. Defects also require inspection, and when I tell my students how I believe, not I, lean practitioners in general, Lean Six Sigma practitioners in general, we believe that inspection is a form of waste. They're always very surprised. They say, why is that a form of waste? Is that not good that we do that? Is that not in the benefits of the client? Should the client not reward us extra if we inspect? And I say, no, think about it like this. It's not the client's problem that your process is so unreliable, so messed up, so much flawed, that you need to inspect once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, etc. That's not the client's problem. If that your process is so flawed, you should create a process that is so reliable that inspection is not even required anymore. Okay? Now, how do we actually go from an organization that creates a lot of defects and needs a lot of inspection to an organization and a process and a production form that creates a lot less defects, and as a result also needs a lot less inspection? Typically, we can already make huge improvements if we switch to standardized work and try to integrate the Poka-Yoka principle as much as possible. Okay, so if we introduce the Poka-Yoka principle in as many facets of our production as possible, and we make strides towards standardized work, then the number of defects, in my experience, drastically drops. I'm going to be very honest with you. It doesn't drop to 0. You will always have some defects, okay? But the interesting thing is that through standardized work, through Poka-Yoka, the number of defects drops considerably, okay? And it takes then maybe some extra effort to make it drop to almost 0, but it makes it already drop considerably. Let's see how that works. What is standardized work exactly about? Standardized work is about having standards, okay? So having standards clearly defined, having standards clearly communicated, transparent to all the people who are involved. How much glue should you exactly use? How many fries should you serve exactly? Which tool must you use? On which part must you use that tool? How must you store that tool? Where is that tool located? All these questions seem relatively straightforward. If you're an industrial engineer, okay, if you received a college education, you have an MBA, etc., then for you it might make perfect sense how much paint or glue should be used. For you it might make perfect sense and be self-evident how much fries exactly should be served to each individual client. But let me tell you something from experience, and maybe your experience, in your experience you recognize this. What makes sense for you, especially if you're highly educated, believe me, does not make sense to everyone else. It is just not the way that human society is arranged. People, especially lower level employees, have a different logic than you as an industrial engineer or an MBA or a manager or assistant manager have. That is simply a part of life. They need standards. You need to communicate clearly. Things like this, even though they seem silly to them, and that already reduces defects. It also reduces literal waste, okay? It reduces also literal waste. Next principle that you can apply is the Poka-Yoka principle, Japanese word, and basically freely translated, it means making things foolproof. Okay, Poka-yoke, when you Poka-yoke something, you make things foolproof. Now, you know, there's not a lot of theory behind this, so I thought, let me show you a few examples here. Okay, let me show you a few examples of this Poka-yoke principle. I can give you hundreds of examples, both geared towards protecting the consumer or basically making the production more efficient. This is a classic example, textbook example. Okay, you find it in many textbooks about this principle. We have two components. We have component A and we have component B. They have to be assembled. Now this is the wrong way of assembling it. So there's some kind of a hole, okay, or there's some kind of a cavity here, all right, which you don't see, which means that you can insert it like this in this component, or you can insert it like this. Now if you insert it like this, that's the correct way. This is the wrong way. Now you want to design your assembly line in a way that is Poka-yoke. Okay, I don't know if that is, you know, if that is Poka-yoke, and which is foolproof. Okay, now how would you go about doing that? Why don't you take a moment, pause this video, and think about a creative, a feasible way of designing the assembly or the process in such a way that it simply becomes impossible to assemble these two things in the wrong way, that it simply becomes impossible to do that. All right, take a few moments, please. Thank you. All right, so I assumed you actually gave it some thought. Now here, this is a solution, feasible. If you put here some kind of a pin, then you prevent that this will be assembled in the wrong way, but you do make it possible because this pin does not interfere with the correct assembly. Okay, so by inserting a pin like this, you already make this process Poka-yoke or foolproof, and the number of defects can be, you know, the number of defects that stem from this wrong assembly can be reduced to zero. Let me tell you something, that sometimes the cost of a defect are quite modest, but I have seen cases where, especially where they were dealing with batch production, that if something like this, you know, if something like this becomes embedded in the product, deep in the heart of the product, and becomes only visible after a full batch is produced, you're dealing with huge financial losses, because opening up the batch, completely tearing it apart, getting to this part and rearranging it, in many cases it doesn't even make financial sense anymore, so they completely write off a complete batch. And if you're unlucky, the batch consists of 1,000 or 10,000 units. Okay, so take that into consideration, how this is not, making things foolproof is not a silly thing. Making things foolproof does make a lot of financial sense. One more example. We have A and B. They should be assembled. Oh, there's something went wrong here. Doesn't matter. So it should be assembled, but let me change the color of this. They should be assembled, but they have to be assembled like this. So this should go here like this and not upside down. Okay, now how do you come up with a way, feasible of course, that should always be feasible, how can you come up with a way that would make the disassembly impossible? Again, pause this video for a few moments and give it some serious thought. All right, so I assume you paused the video, you gave it some serious thought. Well, one way of doing that is by, for instance, having, you know, something like this. Okay, so you have this here and you have this here, and this slight change in the form makes it impossible to insert it, you know, like this here. It simply makes it impossible. Again, this is the same principle that you actually also find in your mobile phones SIM card. If you look at your mobile phone's SIM card, you see that it is like this. So a part of it has been removed, again, to make it impossible for you to insert it the wrong way. Okay, so they have also made that Poka-Yoke for you. Okay, one last workshop supervisor overseeing the production of baby cribs wants to make sure his employees use the right type of nails, and because these can be very short and they can be very long, etc., etc. And he wants to just, with a blink of an eye, make sure that his employees are using the right ones. How can he make sure of that? Well, difficult to make something like this, Poka-Yoke. Very difficult, very costly. I would say a more pragmatic solution, which is not full Poka-Yoke, but it is quite pragmatic, is the following. Give, and this is something that I've seen with my own eyes, give these different colors. So depending on the length of these nails, this might be, I don't know, red, the top, and this might be, I don't know, maybe green, and the other one might be blue, etc., etc. Then by a blink of an eye, by just looking at, I don't know, a part of the product and seeing this is maybe red and this is also red, then you see immediately with a blink of an eye whether the right kind of nail was used, namely this size nail, yes or no. Okay, it's not completely Poka-Yoke, but it is a pragmatic solution which I've seen being applied all the time in production facilities where nails, screws, etc. are used, depending on how sensitive they are and depending on how difficult it is to repair. You have these colored nails and screws, which make it easy for supervisors to spot whether the right kind of screws or nails are actually being used in the correct area, in the correct part of the product. All right, I could go on a long time, give you one more Poka-Yoke example, but in my opinion doesn't make a lot of sense. I just wanted to show you some examples. The thing is that depending on the situation, making things foolproof or Poka-Yoke will require different solutions. So there's not a function or a formula that I can discuss here. It requires some creativity per situation. I showed you 3 examples. Okay, these 3 examples are widely used across the different industries, but there are hundreds of other examples to be shown, which obviously because of the time issue I cannot do. But I have to say I'm a firm believer in this Poka-Yoke principle. It really does help. Together with standardized work, it reduces defects a lot. All right, thank you very much for your attention and for your valuable time. Thank you.